Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. All right, guys, welcome back to the Mali Mission Podcast. This is episode 10 with your host, Farhan Rana. So, I have a really good episode planned out for you guys. We're going to be talking about how to work out during Ramadan. So, just as a preface before we get started, if anyone isn't too aware of what Ramadan is, or you have completely no idea of what Muslims do during this month, I'll explain all of that in very shortly. But if you are interested in this as a Muslim, I think you'll find immense value in this. And if you're someone who's not of the faith, I think you'll still find this really helpful. One, in terms of really understanding how Muslims navigate this month when it comes to fitness. And number two, if you want to implement this in your own life, based on these principles, and you want to try something different when it comes to your workouts, I think you'll really find this valuable in that sense as well. So I think this will benefit everyone from that standpoint. Like I say every time before we get started, I do want to mention my free workout plan. It's a 7-day workout plan, which you can use, and I know what will happen once we start talking about how to work out during Ramadan, you might have to change what I mentioned in that workout plan. And I'm honestly thinking of releasing a Ramadan specific workout plan for you guys. So if that's something of interest and you would like to have something like that, let me know in the comments below. Or if you're listening to this on your podcast app, just go to my Instagram at Farhan Lifts. So FARHANLIFTS. And just send me a DM and let me know if this is something of value to you, because my whole point with this is to give you guys as much useful and actionable advice when it comes to fitness and self-improvement as a whole. So let me know if this is useful, if this is something you would want, and I'll consider putting it together, inshallah. So, first things first, when it comes to Ramadan, first of all, I should explain what the month is. So it is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar, and it's the month in which Muslims believe that the Quran was revealed, which is the holy book sent by God to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And it is in celebration of that revelation that we fast during the day and we pray during the night, and we, in general, try to develop and cultivate a deeper spiritual connection with God, and to really take a step back from daily life and understand what we're really all about, and really understand our essence and come back to a state of purity, essentially. Because as we're fasting, one of the things that tends to happen is that you lose a lot of that energy, and you get into this state, especially after the first couple of days. We're in this sort of like meditative state, where like you're really contemplating your purpose in life. You're contemplating upon God's favors upon you, and you really start to develop this sense of gratitude and commitment to being your best self. So all of these wonderful things come together, and these are just not even scratching the surface in terms of what really happens to a person as they go through these 30 days. But that's, I guess, the gist of what Ramadan is. And if I were to put it in terms of very actionable and useful steps, in terms of what happens during Ramadan, this would be my version of like a summary of what happens. And so on that point, I'm speaking more to the Muslims here now. So you don't want to forget the point of Ramadan. As I mentioned, the one way to look at Ramadan, honestly, is to consider it like a spiritual boot camp. So when you imagine someone going to boot camp, or like going to like coding academy, or any of these things where it's like intensive, it's short, and it's really just hyper focused on this one purpose, you don't really think that you're going to be replicating your daily routine, your daily habits when you're in that sort of environment and that kind of time frame. You understand that when you undertake these kind of things, your daily schedule and how you operate is going to be on pause for a little bit, just so you can achieve this one specific purpose that you have in front of you. It's the very same thing with Ramadan. I think what happens to a lot of us, because when Ramadan comes, we're still working, we're still going to school, we're still, we have family commitments and all these kind of things. So what we do is that Ramadan just becomes this one add-on to what's going on in our lives. And we don't really see it as this boot camp, as this like intensive, time-sensitive kind of thing, which we have to make the most out of. So my point with saying all of this is that you should expect, and you shouldn't be surprised by the fact that your daily routine and how you operate, and when it comes to fitness, how your workouts are going and what you're achieving in that area, you shouldn't be surprised if that gets disrupted. The last thing you want to do is be really frustrated throughout the month and be like, why, I'm losing all my gains. I just started working out like a month ago. This is really putting like this is throwing a wrench in the gear of like whatever I had going on. That's the wrong mindset to have with this. I read somewhere, I think like maybe a week ago, that you feeling tired and you feeling like just spent, out of energy, maybe even having like a little bit of a headache or whatever going on, that's actually a good thing, because the focus that you have throughout the day, whether it's like I need to really, have my meals all scheduled out, or I need to really have enough energy for my work presentation or whatever, all of the fatigue and the lack of energy that you have is actually a good thing, because it forces you to take a step back from worldly activities and really look at yourself and understand that you're just a creature that is in need of spiritual nourishment right now. And we all are, at every point in doing, at every time of the year. But this is really that special moment, like a full 30-day challenge, where you really you're forced to take a step back, and you're forced to be like, yeah, I don't have enough energy to do the things I'm used to doing. In this state, what can I do, and how can I make the most of it? So that would be my point. So the summary of what I'm trying to say right now is that don't forget the point of Ramadan. It's not to keep up with your daily activities, keep going as you usually are, and then get frustrated as to why you don't have enough energy. I mean, the whole point is to be in this different state completely for the 30 days, and come out of it a different person altogether, spiritually and even physically, if you manage things correctly. So that's what I want to say on that, and I hope I got the point across in terms of like, don't be surprised, don't get angry, don't be frustrated when things are not the way you want them to be. That's the whole point of this. So when it comes to more practical and useful information, when it comes to fitness specifically, the first thing I want to mention is to keep your sleep as consistent as possible. And this might go more for me because I'm very sensitive when it comes to sleep. My family members will tell you, like, if I don't get at least 8 hours of sleep, preferably 9 hours on a good night, I'm just like not in the right state of mind. Even today, it's a Monday. I got up early and everything. I got like 7 hours and 45 minutes of sleep. I still had a bit of lag, so I only really got productive around like 11 a.m. ish after I had some things going on in the morning. So for me personally, I understand this about myself, that when it comes to sleep, I need to really prioritize that, because if that's not in place for me, like my whole day is just like me being like half awake and not really focusing on the things I want to do. If I have something planned out, I just either don't give it the attention it needs, or it just gets, it just goes to the wayside. And, maybe even get like a little frustrated, a little grumpy when it comes to dealing with other people, which is not a good thing at all. I do want to work on that. So you really do want to emphasize sleep, because one, keeping it as consistent as possible, sleeping obviously right after you're done with your Tarawih prayers, waking up just before Fajr, having that, 5, 6, 7 hours of sleep, whatever the case may be, keeping that as consistent as possible, and then catching up during the afternoon or when you get off of work or school, and doing what you can to manage that. Because I understand my audience is going to be people who either go to work or have school, and are not the kind of people who, it's not really summer break, so it wouldn't really apply to students in that sense. But they're not the kind of people who work full time on YouTube, or like have their own businesses so they can create their own schedules as they want. It's going to be people like my friends who work during the day and they have commitments, and they need to make the most of what they're doing. And the first step that they need to take is really understand that you need to catch up on your sleep, and that's going to be the most important thing for you in terms of really having some level of, honestly, sanity, because you don't want to get into this place where you're sacrificing on sleep and you're working out in the night, and it's just like throwing out for your whole week, and it's just like a mess. You don't want that to happen. So point is, keep your sleep as consistent as possible, and adjust as the month goes on, in terms of really understanding what your body needs in terms of rest, and don't don't skip out on this. The last thing you want to do is really jeopardize your health or anything like that. We don't want that to happen. The next point, diet. Understanding what you should be eating is really going to be key in terms of like your energy levels, and if you're cutting or bulking, I think this will really apply, more or less the same, because in either of those states, no matter what you're doing, you're going to experience some loss of muscle potentially, and maybe some loss of fat as well if you do things correctly. Maybe you'll look a little deflated, a little just more flat. Just expect those kind of things because you're going to be dehydrated as well. So my general guidelines for when it comes to diet is really have high protein at both suhoor and iftar. I mean, that should be a no-brainer. You should be eating high protein anyways. But I really want to emphasize this point because, when we're eating with families and we just kind of like go with whatever's being served, it's, you don't want to be rude and not take what you're being offered, but you want to make it a point when you can, when you're eating at home or by yourself, to incorporate a good amount of protein at both of those times, because it'll keep you full and you won't feel as hungry when you go throughout the day or night, and it will also preserve the muscle mass that you currently have or that you're currently building. So it'll be it's a win-win in that kind of scenario. So just some ideas for both of these times. For suhoor, what I'm personally thinking of doing most days is having some amount of Greek yogurt, maybe like 100 grams, 150 grams, like 2 toasts, 2 to 3 eggs, depending on how I'm feeling, and then some amount of tea or coffee. And the caffeine is really interesting because even if you go to sleep for a little bit after suhoor, maybe you're done with suhoor at 5, pray fajr, and then your work starts at like 9. So you take like an hour, 2 hours of sleep. What I think the caffeine does is it prevents that kind of morning fatigue and that kind of headache. So, but you're still able to get some amount of sleep. I don't. It's really weird. I don't understand it. But the days when I haven't had some amount of caffeine in previous Ramadans, it's just been terrible. Like I've been off my game completely that day. So that might be something for you to consider. Maybe you already do this. So this is just a good reminder. So when it comes to iftar, this is gonna vary honestly depending on if you're eating with family or if you're eating somewhere outside or you're at a gathering somewhere. But generally, just you want to have a good amount of meat, some rice, vegetables, lots of water because you're dehydrated. You really want to fuel yourself up, and I mean that's pretty much it. I think this is what most people have anyway, so I'm not saying anything new. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, honestly. Maybe have your multivitamins or something that just really replenishes your micronutrients because that's something that we do tend to lack anyways. But when we're not eating our full meals, that tends to be reduced even more. So maybe have like a multivitamin either at suhoor or iftar. That would be my last recommendation on diet. So just to recap once again, high protein, have some caffeine in the morning. Keep your carbs moderate, maybe even high if you really need that kind of energy. Um, you can play around with sugar and just really see how it works for you. Keep your hydration up, and I think you're in a good place. And for people who understand fitness and health, this is not new like news or anything. This is just for the people who want like a what should I do. I think this is really going to be helpful for you guys, so you have an exact idea and plan of how to navigate Ramadan when it comes to your diet. All right, now moving on to the workouts. So my recommendations for your actual workouts, and we'll discuss workout times in a little bit. But for when you do work out, you want to keep the session short, no more than 30 minutes. This is from the standpoint of you're going to be working, so you're going to be tired from your work or school, and you'll just feel tired. I mean, obviously, so you want to keep those really short and really just to the point. And so an example of something that could be 30 minutes could be maybe one compound movement and 2 isolation movements, or like a combination of a little bit of isolation movements, some cardio at the end or at the very beginning. So you could experiment with this, and depending on what your goals are, you can adjust this as needed. And honestly, like I'll say, like if you're working out 3 to 5 times a week during Ramadan, I mean you're doing an amazing job. I want to praise you for if you've done that in the past, or if you're planning to do something like that. Like, you're doing an amazing job, bro. Because a lot of times what happens with people is that Ramadan comes, they're like, yeah, I just don't want to work. I don't want to work out. And there's a case to be made for that. I'll talk about this later. But if you make it a point, like, no, I don't want to skip out on my workouts, I'll do as much as I can, understanding that I'm at a lower energy level and there's a lot of other things. My time is constrained. But if you still make it a point to even, honestly, even 15 minutes, if you're doing 15 to 30 minutes of working out 3 to 5 times a week, you're doing an amazing job. And honestly, if you have the right intention with this, we're talking a little bit about spirituality. If you have the right intention of like, yeah, I want to do this so that I have more energy to pray during the night, I'm not as tired during the day, I have a good optimistic mood, all of these things, I mean, they'll only improve your worship to God anyway. So if you have that right mindset with this and the right intentionality, this could be a win-win in terms of like really preserving or even giving you new gains. And also, from a spirituality standpoint, really having that right mindset when it comes to worshiping God. So the last point I'll say on working out is like, you want to really listen to your body and adjust as needed in terms of like your frequency, in terms of the intensity of your workouts. I mean, they're not going to be too intense anyways, but just really understand what's going on with your body. Rest days, or like days you're not working out, if you need to increase the number of days you're resting, totally fine. I mean, adjust it as needed. Like I said at the very beginning, this is a spiritual boot camp. So you shouldn't be surprised when things are off. What you were doing really essentially with the workouts is we're keeping some level of activity up just so we keep that. It's really more like a mental thing. You don't want to take a 30-day long rest day, essentially like a whole month off, and then come back to it like, yeah, I'm like, I can't even lift like the bar. You don't want to get into that kind of position. um, what you're essentially doing is like keeping up some level of activity so that when Ramadan ends and you can do things as normal, you're in a position to just pick up from there. Like, all you have to do at that point is just up the intensity, up the frequency, and you're good to go. So workout times, I think this is what a lot of people have a lot of confusion about, and they're like, okay, if I do work out, when should I work out? So you have a couple of different options. I'll discuss the pros and cons of each of them. The first one is in the morning, right after suhoor. The benefit here is that you've just eaten, you have a good amount of protein and carbs in your system, so you're able to crack out a good workout. Again, like 30 minutes, because you don't want to fatigue yourself too much and then just feel terrible the rest of the day. After you pray Fajr either at home or in the masjid, come back, go to your gym, get 30 minutes in, and then go about your day, maybe come home for a nap, whatever your schedule is. But this is an option for guys who they maybe have a later start time in terms of when they start work or school. So this could be something for you to consider. After suhoor, pray Fajr, go work out for 30 minutes, and then maybe come home, take a nap. Or if you want to go straight to work, go straight to work and just do your thing after that. Pros, obviously, you have good energy. Cons, honestly, cons maybe like you'll feel tired earlier during the day. So that's something to keep in mind. The other option is in the evening, right before iftar. Same things apply. Keep it short, keep it intent, keep it to the point. Benefit is that once you're done with your workout, you can just like eat not as much as you want, but you can eat a good amount after you're done, and you don't have to worry about feeling too tired afterwards. The con, obviously, is that you're going to be tired from the day. You're not, you won't have the same level of energy. So in terms of your workout quality, that might be reduced, or it might be, it might suffer. So just understand, like, that's going to be something that for you to manage and really just be aware of. I think that's all I have to say on the evening workouts. Third option is after iftar or after your tarawih. I'm just going to lump those two times together. The benefit here is that you've just eaten. You can, if you're the kind of person who like doesn't really have like a full-time 9 to 5, or like you don't have classes early in the morning, this could be something for you to consider. I would personally push, if I were to choose between this after iftar or after tarawih. Personally, as someone who wants to prioritize going to the masjid and praying, I would do after tarawih, simply because like you'll be done with everything that you need to do in terms of your daily prayers. So you won't have that like, okay, I need to rush after iftar, get a workout in, shower, all this kind of stuff, and then maybe get late to the masjid. So that's something for you to consider. The benefit, like I said, is that you'll have eaten. The one thing I did notice when I did this last year is that even though I had like a solid meal, I even had like a cup of tea, I had enough water, I felt really like out of energy, kind of dehydrated, even after iftar. So it was really interesting. So I don't know, maybe it was the kind of workouts I was doing. I was still trying to replicate the full like 60-minute workouts I'm currently doing and trying to do those. So that's something for you to keep in mind. Maybe you'll notice that as well. So that's a potential con that could happen. So another con might be um, you'll just end up staying up later. You'll feel kind of tired, and maybe your length of sleep, like how long you sleep, and your quality of sleep might suffer because you're working out that late into the night. So like you're seeing with every time, there's no perfect time for anyone. Honestly, it's going to depend on what's going on in your life, how your energy levels are, um, how much experience you have lifting, so you can manage, you can understand your body and work out what's the best time for you. So these are three options that I would, if anyone were to pick one, I would pick from one of these three times. A fourth option, which I do want to mention because I want to be as realistic and as understanding as possible, is that maybe you don't work out, or you work out maybe on the weekends, like maybe Friday night, Saturday night, those are your workout days. Um, Now, for someone who's like listened to me, as someone who like coaches guys on fitness, you might be like, well, that's like a terrible advice. Like, why would you tell someone to not work out at all? Um, and the reason I'm even mentioning this is because there have been Ramadans previously where I wasn't like working out like I do right now, but I still had that kind of like, okay, I need to kind of get to the gym, want to do something. And in terms of like really managing all of that, what was really suffering was my what I'm supposed to get out of Ramadan, which is more remembrance of God, more prayers, all that good stuff. So that was really suffering. So for people who are like who haven't worked out as long, and they don't even want to take the headache of like, okay, I've only started working out like 2 weeks ago. Maybe I don't know. I'm just like really struggling with this idea of like when this would apply to anyone. So I'm just gonna mention it. You can consider it as an option. I'm not gonna say who it's for. You can see the if it's like something that you want to consider is maybe not work out. I feel even bad saying that. Maybe you could do is like, okay, I'll work out once a week on Saturday evenings. That'll be the perfect time. I won't have to worry about school or work. I can just do my thing in the evening after Taraweeh, just work out once a week, and that's my level of activity for the week. Maybe that's the least that you can consider for yourself. And I'll say this, like, I won't judge anyone for not working out during Ramadan. I understand if you're someone who's like really busy, maybe you work like a full-time job, maybe you have evening classes, maybe you have, when you come home, your family needs your attention. I understand that, and you want to make the most of Ramadan, and working out is just one of those last like headaches that you just don't want to take. I mean, you understand that if you had a little bit more time, a little bit more flexibility, maybe you had someone else helping you out with the chores or whatever, this could be something that you could feasibly do, every other day or something. So I'm laying this out as an option because I understand people are in all kinds of different positions in life. So it's something for you to consider, and it's all going back to the main point of what is Ramadan for. It's a spiritual boot camp. It's only 30 days. If you make the most of Ramadan and you really get what you're supposed to out of it, and you don't work out at all, I mean, that's still a win. I mean, you're still winning in that situation. If you're able to work out, if you're able to do some of these things that I laid out for you, even better. But I don't want to get into this black and white. You're not doing what you're supposed to do as a man. You're supposed to be working out, like, even if it's Ramadan. I'm not going to do that, because I understand reality. I understand how people, like, how our lives operate. So I'm just going to say this. If you choose not to work out at all, that's an option I'm laying out for you. But the condition then that you have to follow is that you make the most of Ramadan. You do what you're supposed to do, and you can't be like. I'm really struggling with this last idea, honestly. Um, so maybe I'll say this. So if you're someone who either is in a really busy position, okay, maybe that's an option for you, or you're someone who hasn't really worked out before. Because the last thing I don't want to do is recommend this as an option, and people are like, "Yes, I get to be lazy during Ramadan." That's not the point of this. This is really coming from a position of you just can't manage working out in this month, and my recommendation to you in that situation is okay, like maybe just take the month off and focus on what you need to do. You have the rest of the 11 months to make all the progress you want. This is just those 30 days where you just take a step back and really focus on yourself. Totally fine. I don't want this to be like a get out of jail free card. I can be lazy. I can do whatever I want. I can stay up late. That's not the point of this. As I probably have communicated through my other podcasts, is that we need to be aware of like how we can improve in all areas of life. So I know I'm rambling on this point, but just to wrap up on it, understand where you are in life, understand what you're able to do. Look at the times first and foremost that I mentioned: morning, evening, after iftar or tarawih. Consider those first if they can work for you. If they just can't work and you just don't want to work out, don't even think about it. Focus on what you need to do. That's the most important thing. As a Muslim, you need to really understand that some things do take a backseat sometimes, and that's just how life is. So, guys, I hope that was really helpful. I tried to lay out everything that you need to be aware of when it comes to staying fit and having some level of health and activity in during Ramadan. Um, and honestly, my whole point of making this video is because when I looked for this kind of video last year or even like 2 years ago, I didn't really find people going into this length of like detail and really laying out what you need to know. So after my own, trial and error and my experimentation with what works, this is as best of a guide I can provide to you. So really take this, listen to it multiple times if you need to really get an idea of what you can do. And my whole point of like putting this out earlier in this week is because Ramadan is, depending on where you are in the world, it's going to be either this Friday or Saturday, maybe even Sunday. Um, so really, you have like a whole week to plan this out and get your meal prep or get your workouts, all laid out. So once Ramadan comes, you know exactly what to do. So that's my intention, of putting this episode out early. And yeah, guys, I'm really looking forward to, so if you would ask me what I'm gonna do, um, honestly, it's gonna depend on how I feel those first couple of days. I'm really inclined to the morning workouts, because I don't really have work in the morning. I have evening classes, so that could be an option for me, honestly. Um, yeah, I think what I'll do next week when Ramadan is actually in full swing is I'll tell you guys what I'm doing, and then like maybe in like 2 weeks into it, it could be like a half month checkpoint or like just me reporting back to you guys in terms of what's working, so that you can refer back to someone who's like actually trying this in real time and be like, okay, he's doing something, he's telling us what's working, so maybe I can draw inspiration from that or just fix my own kind of situation. All right, guys, so I'll keep that. We're getting up to almost like 30 minutes at this point. I want you guys to really internalize what I said. The whole point of Ramadan is it's a spiritual boot camp. Just keep it, that's the simplest way I can describe it. But I've given you practical and actionable advice that you can implement. And I think if you guys have a good plan, regardless of whether you work out or not and you make the most of it, I think you're going to have a great month ahead of you. And to all my people who are, who are not Muslim, I hope this was insightful to you in a number of ways. One, it gives you an idea of like the struggles and like the kind of considerations we Muslims have to make when it comes to working out in this month or just having some level of activity. So if you have a Muslim friend or you just wanted to get like a sense of like what goes on in this month for Muslims, I hope this gave you that kind of insight into what we actually do. And secondly, like I said in the very beginning, if it gives you an idea of like, okay, I want to try something different. I've been doing like this 6-day split for a long time. Maybe I want to try like some version of a fast and then maybe do workouts. This could be something for you to consider. Maybe like a challenge or like just something, just a break in your regular routine. So this could be something for you to for you to maybe consider as a self experiment or a challenge. All right, guys. So like I said, let me know if you do want a guide, like a short workout guide, like a PDF on what exact workouts you can do. If that's something of interest and people are really interested in that, I'm more than happy to put that together over the next week, so that you guys have that with you when you do start. So, all right, guys, we'll wrap it up right there. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, for listening, for subscribing, for liking, for giving me all these comments and giving me feedback. The only way this channel grows, the only way I grow, is if I get feedback from you guys on what's working, what's not working, or just improvements that I can make along the way, or what you guys want to hear. So yeah, let me know what you guys want to know, and what topics you want me to cover in the next this week or even next week, and I'll definitely consider that. And again, guys, really thankful for the opportunity to make these podcasts and to talk to you guys. It's honestly crazy. We're at episode 10, and it's just like when I look back to late December, early January, when I started putting this together, I was like, anyone even gonna listen to me? Like, is this even useful? A lot of self-limiting beliefs. So I'll tell you guys, like, as I've done every podcast, as I've learned the ropes of what goes into this, as I've learned like how to actually record like videos that actually have some decent quality, all that kind of good stuff. I'll tell you guys, it gets easier in terms of like you get over those limiting beliefs, and it's not so much about the feedback you get from people. It's really that self-confidence that you get, like, okay, I can actually do this, and people are getting results and they're benefiting. I mean, that's the biggest sort of growth I've experienced in the last couple of months. And inshallah, I just want to keep that up, give you guys more advice, more just insight, more inspiration, and really build a tribe, a community of guys who are on our manly missions, and we're out to do something amazing in the world. And hopefully I can inspire you and be a big brother to you in that sense. So guys, just want to wrap this up right here. Thank you so much for listening to episode 10 of the Manly Mission Podcast. This is your host, Farhan Rana, signing out.